Test. La la la.
Oink.
Okay.
Exactly.
This is the AT Banter podcast, a balanced and entertaining look at assistive technology, accessibility, and its importance in people's lives. Join Rob Minot, Ryan Fleury, and Steve Barclay as they banter with people around the world about anything and everything regarding assistive technology and the disability community. Now, on with the show.
Hey, and welcome to another episode of AT Banter.
Banter.
Hi, my name is Rob Minot, and today joining me, Mr. Ryan Fleury.
Good day.
And that's it. It's just me and Ryan.
Me and Rob.
Mainly because, well, Steve's out on vacation.
Out in the wilds.
Vacation. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, dun, whatever happened to the Go-Go's?
I don't know.
I guess they're probably in some old age home by now. Actually, I guess they're not.
Not a whole lot older than us.
I don't know. Well,
Probably
yeah,
about 10
maybe.
years older, maybe. But
Yeah, all right. Well,
they could be in a home.
you're right. You're right. They're probably not in a home, but
They could be touring
they're
Europe or Japan.
Certainly. Oh, maybe. Who knows?
Maybe.
Anyways, hey, Ryan.
Yes, sir.
How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic.
Anything new and exciting in your life?
Not a thing.
Is there anything new and exciting in the world of accessibility and or assistive technology?
Well, Rob, now that you ask, there
Yeah.
was an announcement made in the last few days
What?
at the National Federation of the Blind Conference. Had to think about that for a second.
Yeah.
And HIMSS has announced a new product called the QBraille XL.
Oh, really? Okay. Is this just a new Braille display?
It is a new Braille display, but it's very unique. What they've done is they've taken a lot of the familiar QWERTY keys, like the function keys across the top of our QWERTY keyboard,
Yeah.
as well as your arrow keys up, down, left, and right, your escape, control, shift, tab, control, alt, and so on, and added them to the keyboard as well. So you've got a 40-cell Braille display.
Uh-huh.
You've got a 6-key Perkins-style keyboard for entry as well.
Oh, okay.
But you can also do commands like Alt F4 to close an application. So you'd never have to take your hands off this keyboard.
Oh, wait a minute. Oh, I see. Okay. All right.
Right.
Wha-
So you could be
Oh,
reading
that's
Braille
brilliant.
with your screen reader of choice
Right.
and doing Braille input on the 6-key Perkins input keyboard. And if you want to close an application, instead of using some, strange configuration of Braille to close an application, you just hit the Alt F4 keys.
Now, so wow, that's really interesting. I'm kind of surprised that nobody has thought of this before because, yeah, that's well. Okay, let me ask you this then. So with those new function keys, then does it mean the unit is bigger than usual? Like did they have to sort of sacrifice some real estate for the design to put that row of keys above the Perkins?
No, it's your familiar style, QWERTY style keyboard. So if you've got
So
a
just-
desktop keyboard that you are using currently with your computer, basically take out the letters on the keyboard and plop in a 6-key Braille input and a 40-cell Braille display.
So it really is. So the unit itself isn't any bigger than any other Braille display.
Nope.
Really?
Nope. Or QWERTY keyboard. So you can use this as your Braille input keyboard. You can use this in conjunction with, like I said, function keys. So
That's
Alt
cool.
F4
That's
to
cool.
close an application. Regular screen reading commands like, insert F11 to bring up your system tray.
Uh-huh.
So for somebody like myself who isn't a real strong or proficient Braille reader, I've got the best of both worlds. I've got the 40-cell Braille display. I can do Braille input if I so desire. And I've got, the regular QWERTY keyboard. So Alt F4, Control, Escape, Tab, Shift Tab.
So really, it's
cool.
it's just a little bit more ease of use. It sounds like it's a usability sort of improvement on the overall design of the unit.
Yeah, it's based on the Braille Edge Braille display by HIMSS as well. So built in, you have note taking. So a built-in basic note taker, a daisy reader, a calculator, What else is there? I think there's a stopwatch or a timer. So it's got some basic utilities built in as well. As Bluetooth, you can pair it up to, I believe it was five devices.
Uh-huh.
As well as you can use it with USB. So it's very cool.
Yeah, it sounds very cool. So when's this thing supposed to be out? Is it?
I heard a rumor, possibly September. They're taking pre-orders now.
Interesting. Interesting. Well, you know what? It's funny how these little design changes can really have really big implications in terms of functionality, right?
Absolutely. You know, like a screen reader like JAWS for Windows, you know, you can do many commands right off of your Braille display if you can do finger gymnastics, you know. So, you know, I don't know what the Braille equivalent is of doing an Alt F4 to close an application using a Braille keyboard, but how great is it that you can actually just press the Alt key and the F4 key on a device like this and not have to memorize, all these Braille contractions. So I think it's exciting. I think it's revolutionary, and I really see a need for something like this.
Very cool. Well, and I don't know, I assume that if this thing's a success, we're probably going to see it bleed into this particular design feature, sort of bleed into other manufacturers' displays as well. I'm assuming. Yeah,
I don't think it's going to be long before the competition is releasing a product to, you know, chances are they've already been working on it. It always seems that these companies leapfrog each other anyway.
Right.
So I don't think it's going to be long.
Cool. Hey, speaking of Braille.
What
are we doing today?
Today we're talking with Brian MacDonald, the president of National Braille Press.
Yeah. Look at that.
All about Braille.
Yeah, today looks like Braille heavy today.
BRAILLE. Braille.
Nice.
It's Monday.
Yeah, it is. Why don't we talk? Okay, you know what? Tell me what you were telling me a little bit earlier off mic about what Vocali was sending out last week, because I thought this was interesting.
All right. Well, a friend of the show, Steph Kirkland, who is director of Vocali, which is a descriptive theater program here in the Lower Mainland, here in Vancouver, posted on Facebook that there's a casting company here in Vancouver called, I think it's Candice Elzinga Casting.
Okay.
And anyway, they are looking for blind and visually impaired people to audition for an Apple original TV series being shot from September of this year, 2018, to March of 2019. And like I said, they're looking for blind and visually impaired people from ages 6 all the way up to, 80, 85, 90. In various parts. I've only seen 2 parts listed so far. But, we'll include the details if you're interested in our show notes. There's an email address and a phone number if you're interested in reaching out to Candice, who is the contact at Candice Elzinga Casting. And, it looks like it's a show based 600 years in the future where civilization has all lost their vision and have learned to adapt and do things differently. So it's an interesting premise.
It is an interesting premise. Actually, the premise is what really interests me, because I don't know. This is cool. Like, I don't know that there's ever been a show like that. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's interesting. I wonder why we all lost our vision.
I don't know. Haven't got that far.
Maybe we become mole people. We have to go underground for 100 years, and then we just go blind because of all the darkness.
I don't know. I know nothing.
Yeah.
I'll send you the info I have.
So that's cool. So you're auditioning.
I've reached out to Candice and asked, about when auditions are and where auditions are being held. And she told her my age and stuff. So she asked me where I was located. So I replied to her this morning. And I'm just waiting to hear back from her, and we'll go from there. So
you could be a movie star.
I could at least put actor on my resume.
Interesting.
If I get a part. Mm-hmm.
Huh. Yeah, see
even
if they need
extra.
A grumpy bastard.
That's right.
Grumpy bastard
grumpy
1.
Bastard. That's right.
That's pretty cool, my friend.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens with that, but like I said, we'll include all the details and contact info, I think, in our show notes, because
Sure. If you're in the Lower Mainland,
to share it. So
yeah, if you're in the Lower Mainland and you're visually impaired and you want to get some TV time, why not? So it'd be fun. I actually was an extra in the first year I was down here. I moved down with friends, and there was a casting call for a TV movie.
Really?
I think it was a TV movie. It might have been a theatrical release movie that was like in theaters for like 5 minutes. It had John Ritter,
really,
and Pam Dauber from Mork and Mindy in it.
Wow.
And it was the premise was what was it called? I don't even remember the name of the movie. Anyways, the movie, like they rented out the entire Agrodome on the P&E grounds, and it was sort of subbing for it was a wrestling scene.
Oh, okay.
So John Ritter and Pam Dauber were wrestlers in the scene, and they were wrestling these other evil wrestlers, and so they just wanted like extras for the crowd, right? And they filled maybe a quarter of the Agrodome, and then just had people move around as the camera shots. Huh. But it was cool, they gave out signs and stuff, and I think a bunch of elementary schools just like had big field trips and just let the kids like sit in the audience to sort of watch, and it was fascinating. It was fascinating watching a TV show.
Did they feed you?
Yeah, we got lunch. Excellent. We got sandwiches and stuff.
Nice.
So that was fun. And then routinely when I was going to college in New Westminster, they would be filming episodes of the X-Files. So we always used to go and find out where they were filming on the street and stuff and watch, and saw David Duchovny walk his dog one day.
Wow.
In the park. Yeah.
Well, so you could put actor on your LinkedIn profile.
No. Well, yeah, maybe. Sure. Maybe I should.
Not?
Maybe I should. You're right.
Sure.
Why limit yourself?
That's right.
I was wrestling fan number 642. You may know me.
Had a little more hair back then.
Yeah, a little bit more hair. It was my pretty days. Pretty boy days.
Excellent.
All right, let's get this show started.
Alrighty.
Enough small talk.
Enough bantering.
Brian MacDonald is the president of the National Braille Press. The National Braille Press is an organization that promotes literacy for blind children, but really people of all ages, and gives them access to information that empowers blind people to actively engage in work, family, and community affairs. Brian, can you move?
Hello, this is Brian MacDonald. Is this Brian on this line?
It is, Brian. How are you?
Good. Is this clear enough for sound?
Perfect.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, well, great. Well, let's just dive in. Why don't we start with telling us a little bit about what you guys do at the organization?
Okay. Well, National Braille Press is based in Boston, but we are across the U.S., and we certainly work with many countries beyond the U.S. border. We're a nonprofit. We're a publisher and producer of Braille materials that supports Braille literacy and tactile literacy, I should say, for children. And certainly we provide information in Braille for adults, too, for lifelong learning and work and so forth.
Now, how long have you guys been around?
We are 91 years old. We were founded in 1927. We started out as a newspaper for the blind. And certainly we've morphed into many other things since then.
And no, so is the main crux of your services actual printing?
Yes, the majority the world is changing, as we all know, when you talk about digital print and even with Braille. But the majority of our work still is in paper print Braille. Yeah. And that includes making tactile graphics that are physical, that you can feel, for tests and textbooks as well. But certainly we do a lot of digital Braille too, in different formats for future downloads and things like that. So that can happen too.
Now, we're up in Canada, so but I mean, we're sort of in the same boat, I'm sure, in a lot of ways. And I know for us, Braille literacy has been a bit of an uphill battle for the last 10 years or so with sort of the advent of really really good screen readers, and text-to-speech technology on smartphones and stuff. So there's been these growing murmurings that could take the place of actually being able to read Braille for this next generation. Have you guys been finding that?
Well, we've certainly heard the same kind of talking points and discussions. I would say that I really feel that the focus on the importance of Braille is really stronger, probably because of those threats. It's pretty hard to argue that Braille is a dead language, and it's not a language, but a dead code or whatever. When you think of how it impacts science, technology, engineering, and math, not having the ability to read a complex equation or science formula or learning a language, certainly grammar and sentence structure and spelling even are essential for you to become literate by definition. And it's pretty hard to do that without Braille. I'm not saying that people can't get jobs if they don't know Braille, that are blind and so forth. We've been through those discussions, but certainly some data shows that the people that are employed in America that have learned Braille are much more likely to be employed and successful in their careers than those that haven't had it. So I think that underlying notion is still pretty prevalent, and so I'm not discouraged. I think it is something certainly to be concerned about, but I still feel pretty optimistic overall.
Yeah, I totally agree. And one of my questions I had for you, Brian, is, are you guys producing your books using the traditional contracted Braille, or have you guys switched over to UEB?
We were the first in the U.S. to switch over to UEB before it was even the official date.
Oh, okay.
One of our periodicals called Syndicated Columnist Weekly, we did as a test point. We had an insert that showed some of the contractions changes, between UEB and EBAE in our case. And so no, we do all formats. So in America, it's not unified. I don't mean to say unified like UEB,
right. Yeah.
But it's not consistent in every state.
Right.
Every state makes their own plans of, whether it be at what grade they transition to UEB. So we as producers of Braille and publishers, we have obviously the skill sets to do all formats: contracted, uncontracted, UEB, EBAE, multiple languages. So we're skilled at all of it, but eventually I think that transition will become more and more into UEB for sure in all states.
Yeah, and I think that's got to be tough. I'm totally blind myself and lost my sight later in life. So Braille has not come naturally to me. It's been a struggle. But just recently, I've started trying to learn a little bit of Braille math. And doing some research, it looks like in the U.S. anyway, some states have adopted UEB math. Others are sticking with Nemeth. It's got to be really difficult to try and please everybody when there's really no set standard that everyone's adopted yet.
No, I think you're right, and it is a concern. In general, it seems like in different states so far that they're focusing on UEB for kindergarten or primary grades, and then the high schoolers that already learned English Braille would stick with that to graduate and not worry about taking a test that's changed into UEB. But in reference to the math, it has been more of a debate, I guess, whether you go with Nemeth or just stick with like you're saying, UEB Braille math or whatever. Mm-hmm. So that's something that we'll have to play out, and we'll see what happens. But it seems to me so far it's early that more will be going to UEB than to Nemeth, I think, but it's too early to predict that.
Yeah.
So now going back to the idea of Braille literacy, obviously the best way to encourage Braille literacy is to sort of hit the youth, hit them while you're young. What are some of your organization's strategies in doing that?
Well, we do it a few ways. Like if you think of I guess the first way we start is this. We have a program called Read Books because Braille Matters, and it's an introductory free book bag that goes to parents of children that are blind or going to lose their vision perhaps, and it goes to any teacher that's visually impaired or school system that has students that are blind. And what it is a compilation of a book on why Braille matters as far as the importance for that student. And we have one that we wrote ourselves through one of our employees at the time, Just Enough to Know Better, which teaches Braille to the parents or to a new teacher perhaps that isn't a TVI. So they get an understanding of the basics of how to communicate and start teaching Braille to that child when they're not in school. So that's really important to get them early on, for the parents to realize that Braille is important for the child, whether they have some functional vision or not. If they're going to have a degenerative eye disease, eventually Braille may be really critical for that person's life, and that it's not a daunting, horrible thing to deal with. That Braille can really be something that's very useful and beneficial. So that's one thing we do. We also have a little program called Bumpy Basics that is just to get a toddler to get an understanding of what Braille dots mean. If you think of a sighted toddler, they see billboards and parents reading newspapers or books, and they start to make a connection about literacy even very young. But if you don't have some similar thing for a blind young child, Bumpy Basics, when you're reading books and stuff, gets them to start feeling bumps and understand that that's kind of the relationship they need to have, So we do that. And then we certainly have our Children's Braille Book Club that is a subscription that you can get a book every month. And, there are always fun bestsellers or traditional classics that we do from time to time as well. But a lot of new books that are winning awards for youth and young readers that we do that helps to encourage the love of reading. And the last thing we do is we have a program called Great Expectations, which is a book series. And unlike the Children's Book Club, it also goes into a lot of multimodal learning, including music and song and dance and poetry and jokes and online activities for parents with computers to have this book connected in multiple ways. It makes it fun to really encourage the joy of just reading, and which strengthens literacy and Braille skills and all that. And the other thing we did with the Great Expectations series is we helped parents to understand how to do picture description, because in most of our books, we never really delved into defining pictures. But in the Great Expectations series, we have description built in so parents can read that and learn how to describe a scene or a setting. And I think that's really important, too, to give a stronger understanding of a book for a child.
So what is your turnaround time once you decide on a book that you're going to convert to Braille?
Well, if we're doing a book for like a private author or something, it's 4 to 6 weeks, depending on how complex a book is, obviously. But we cycle books we're doing them all the time. So we just have a schedule for the year of, we have like a 12 to 18 month calendar of what we're going to be producing, and with the exception of different types of jobs that are inserted in there. So we're always like 2 months ahead of schedule, producing the book that will be sold, down the road here. So that's about what it would be.
And for textbooks, students typically have them at the start of the school year, or is there a little bit of an overlap into that?
Well, that certainly depends on the procrastination of the teachers, doesn't it? But what we do in the cases where we may receive them late, we will print and transcribe, a number of chapters, in advance, and then continue to chase ahead of the teacher's schedule to make sure they're delivered for the student on time. It really depends. I will say that we put a tremendous push this year to our educational outreach to get textbooks in earlier than like August or September.
Right.
And we had a huge order already in April, the month of April. So if that happens, we'll be way ahead of the game for the students and won't be scrambling as hard towards the fall when school starts. So we'll see what happens, but that's our intent.
Excellent.
So now you also have something that you've called the Center for Braille Innovation. Could you tell us a little bit of a rundown on what you guys are working on there?
Sure. Yeah, so I've been there a little over 10 years now at National Braille Press, and in my very first year, I was never in the blindness field at all, so I had a lot to learn and still do, but I realized that one of the big challenges was the digital world was already starting and upon us. Digital textbooks were more of a thought, not getting into high production yet, but digital tests were right behind it. And the cost for refreshable Braille displays was averaging $6,500 for one unit. And not only schools struggled to afford that for students, families couldn't afford them either. And if you really wanted to encourage children and students to be strong in Braille, they're not getting enough time in school systems in America to really be as good as they should. At least they could be doing stuff at home with a Braille display, whether it's games or passive learning or things like that would be fun to strengthen their Braille skills. So my interest was, let's get a team of experts together, identify leveraging emerging technologies that can help do a few things. One, make the cost of Braille much lower than it had been, and still high quality, reliable Braille that was easy to mass produce. And our interest wasn't just in Braille itself, but also with tactile graphics. Like, how can we make a real-time output of a graphic, whether it be a bar chart or a line curve or even a diagram or image that could be the future digital test, that you need to have real responses that are dynamic. If you answer a question one way, you get a different graph. If you answer it correctly, you get a different graph. So you can't just have a stack of tactile graphics necessarily in a pile. They're in some sequential order, because a dynamic test may change on you and you're totally lost. So all those things are of interest to us, like for the future. So the first person I contacted was Dean Blasey, who some of your listeners probably know his name.
Right.
He created the Braille and Speak and the Braille Lights and the series, and originally under Blasey Engineering, and then it was sold to Freedom Scientific when he retired. But I called Dean up and I said, Dean, you don't know me. I'm the new kid on the block at NBP, but you certainly know of us. And I said, you made amazing support for the blindness community when you created Refreshable Braille that was, successful. But I said, you also know it costs an awful lot, and I'd like to see if you could help me find a way to reduce that cost. So he flew up to Boston to visit me and spent the day with me, and he said, my no compete with Freedom Scientific ended 8 years ago. I'm in, I want to help. And so he and I were the first two of the Center for Braille Innovation, and then we recruited 24 other people. They were all walks of life, certainly engineers and researchers, teachers, lawyers that are blind, a lot of really talented people with different backgrounds. And we spent the first 6 months just figuring out what's out there in the world, what has been done in research, and what do people want for a product, and we did a white paper at that time that had like 32 research projects around the world, and we realized that two things are going on. One was that not a lot had changed since Dean had retired. Technology hadn't really changed that much. Costs were still high to buy these things, and even the new technologies we were identifying then were promising. They weren't ready yet for prime time. So we decided to take two courses of action. One, to make a lower cost Braille display, which became our B2G for Braille to Go. And the second thing was, let's continue concurrently research on making a full page Braille and graphic tablet for the blind. So those two things were what drove this primary mission of the Center for Braille Innovation. And since then, we launched the B2G 2 years ago at the CSUN conference in San Diego, and we've been doing well with that, selling units. And we had a tactile caliper that you might not have heard of, but it has a slide rule almost on it that has refreshable mechanical Braille that tells you to the 16th of an inch what you're measuring for size. There's a metric version that has since come out, but that was launched also at CSUN in 2016. And now even though the B2G is more of a full computer that, has lots of features on it, and it's it sells for $2,495. It isn't that cheap, but it's cheaper than what was out there.
Right.
But we're now, in fact, arriving today, literally today, we're getting our first shipment of a new product called the Braille Me from India. Innovision is the company.
Yep.
That is a 20-cell Braille display, a simpler device, simple reader, simple editor on it, SD card, but you can Bluetooth with Android and iOS with it. And it'll retail for $499 US. Wow. So that's a pretty good thing. And what I found with our customers, we have customers that bought the B2G and all they do is read books on it. But because it was a lower price device compared to some of the competitors, they bought it. Right. And so we're excited to be distributing this in North America, in Canada, Mexico, and the U.S. For people that want a simple device that can take notes still and connect to a smartphone, but is a lot less expensive than even our B2G. So we look at the B2G for students and people in the workplace that need a lot more functionality. We have paralegals and lawyers and, business people that need a lot more, capability. But the Braille Me, with connections to an iPhone or an Android phone, still has a lot of cool stuff you can do with it. But it's a simpler device at a really much less expensive price, which we're excited about.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that, products like the Orbit 20 kind of got the ball rolling with the lower priced Braille display options. Maybe the Braille doesn't refresh as quickly. Maybe it's a little bit more mechanical. Maybe it's a little bit more noisy. But with products like the Orbit and the Braille Me, I'm really hoping that we're about to see some revolution in Braille technology.
Right. I agree. And just to add, in full disclosure, so the Braille Me, the company Innovision from India, was awarded our Touch of Genius Prize a couple months ago. And we gave it out to them at the CSUN conference this past March. We have a adjudication committee from people outside of NBP that are, different, very well-respected people that chose it. And we're really impressed with its technology behind it, too. So I give credit to the Orbit for being out there. When we launched our B2G in 2016, that's when the Orbit launched. And it's a different design. It's totally different from the Braille Me, but I give them credit for really pushing that envelope to try and get prices down. And the Braille Me, I'm very excited about because I think its technology is so revolutionary that it's going to change Braille forever. It's one moving part, a totally different approach, and very durable. So we're really excited about it, and we think it's a complement, but it has potential for a lot of other things besides just the 20-cell Braille display.
Right.
I mean, we've long sort of been advocates for Braille literacy as well, and I think to us, the technology behind Refreshable Braille has been one of the really big hurdles to get over because it is so expensive. And I really see this as being really important right now because I think that the more options that can be offered in terms of price point, the better. Because sure, a $6,000 Braille display that's sort of state of the art is great for those people who can afford it, but there's such a huge segment of the population that's just out of their reach. And so, developing some sort of new technology that can produce and produce Braille in a more efficient manner that the price point can drop is just crucial right now, especially when we have to compete with things like screen readers and text to voice.
Exactly. No, I do think we're at a new era that's starting right now, and how it adapts I'm not being wise. It's going to really impact the market. All the big companies, it's going to really rethink how Braille's done in the future. It's to me exciting. I say it as a capitalist too. I'm not a socialist, but to be clear, I believe in competition because I think it helps really to hone everyone's skill sets and to make products better. Mm-hmm. And I think these guys from India were very innovative and They've tested it for 8 million cycles without failure, which is really impressive. So, and it's easy to manufacture. So I'm just thinking that this approach will be really interesting to watch and see how it evolves over time and what other competitors do to counter it, to be honest.
So do you...
I may be wrong. I'm sticking my neck out by saying all these big predictions, but I think it'll be very interesting to see.
So you being the distributor for InnoVision in, I think you said North America, including Canada, is that going to be available through online sales, or will you have dealers up here?
Right now, we will be doing it like we did with the B2G. We go to a number of shows, and we have direct on the web. You could buy products, but also by calling in. But even with the B2G, when I launched it 2 years ago, I had representatives wanting to sell it for us, but they wanted $1,000 commission per unit.
Right.
I just wasn't going to mark it up to our customers that way. Yeah. I told my board at that time, I'd rather sell them slower until they get to kick the tires at some show or luncheon or wherever they might see it, or, you know, see a friends or whatever. But I'd rather do it that way than to put the price on the consumers. You know, it's just how that's our mission, kind of. We try to sell books at the lowest price possible, and products are the same way. So for the Braille Me, because it is such a low margin, I mean, $499, there's not a lot of profit being made on any unit being sold.
No.
And we're not doing that for that reason, as you can tell. But we are going to help the InnoVision people find other distributors as well. We can't. I told them, no, anybody that says they can do it all themselves is lying to you. I mean, we just happen to be the first one, you know, coming through, I think, with it. But I imagine within the next couple of months, we'll be identifying some other ones that'll be selling the product too. But anyway, I'm being really clear. We just, you know, we're going to have to figure this out. It's a new business model for this kind of product to be sold too, because, you know, if it had a damage in shipment or it had a bad part or whatever, like there's a point of no return. If you're not going to mail this to India and back and forth because you pay more to insure it and send it than you would to just replace it. You know, like it's
right.
$499 is still a lot of money, but it's not $6,000 or $7,000. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and that was, you know, my main reason for asking is because here in Canada we still can't get an Orbit 20 unless we order it through APH.
Right.
You know, CNB up here won't get them because there was, you know, some delays in manufacturing or something, and they wanted to wait till that got sorted out. So if people are interested in the Braille Me, we can just direct them to your website.
Yes, and it's not even on our website yet because we were waiting for our first shipment because we didn't want to have a slurry of back orders and hold people up. So by this coming Friday, we'll have it on our website. But there's references to the Touch of Genius prize that we gave there. But this Friday, you'll have information on how you can buy them because that's when we're officially getting it out.
Great.
So, but that's true. Yeah, you can buy it direct. The B2Gs we sell in North America the same way, where you can just buy direct through us.
Now, do you... I know we talked about, you know, you just mentioned the servicing aspect of it. If there was any troubleshooting or service issues that came up, would people just get in contact with National Braille Press then?
Yes, we're going to be managing service here as well. Okay. So we'll have units. What we'll probably honestly do is swap them out. We're not going to even... Right. We can do repairs. We'll be trained for, you know, repairs if there were certain things wrong. But it's just more practical to swap things out, to be honest, at that point. So that's probably how a lot of things will be handled.
Okay.
Now, are you looking for other distributors in other countries?
Well, because they're from India, they're doing the whole Eastern Asian region. They're already selling these in Pakistan and other countries. They just did that about a month ago. So they'll handle that. I'm a member of the World Blind Union also, so I certainly have some connections in other countries, and if they need me to help with that, I can do that. But our responsibility is just directly North America, and they if they need help, may ask for help, but they're trying to figure out the rest of the world.
Gotcha. And now, does that let's talk a little bit about Braille printing. Now, does any of that technology impact the cost of Braille printing? Because, as I'm sure you know, even just the act of Braille printing is also a bit of a costly endeavor. Does any of that have an impact on printing?
Right now, it's not the same. I'm not saying it couldn't be adapted to do that, but we're working with these guys on distributing the Braille Me. We're working with them on a full page display too soon, using the same technology that's in the Braille Me. And we're working with a big entity that I can't talk about also for an OEM product. So we have a lot to bite off with them right now. So Braille embossers and printing isn't going to be with them right now, at least. But I can tell you, I work with a lot of engineering universities around here, and we've worked with one on that. And it hasn't been our highest priority either, because we've been so concerned with digital Braille that it's been a little bit of a back burner, but it is still important because those prices aren't going down either, very much at least. And I do think for someone in home to have an affordable embosser is a big deal. And I'd like to see one about $300 or something if we can pull it off. That's good. I mean, good too, reliable, not just.
Well, if you can get it down to $300, that's going to be pretty revolutionary.
That's a game changer.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was going to say, I mean,
it would be.
There are some quote mainstream manufacturers out there that are kind of I feel like testing the waters of some sort of a tactile printing system, but everything that I've seen, it's pretty lackluster and it seems pretty limited. But with you sort of having an inside view of the technology, I don't know. Do you see a time when a $300 embosser for the home would be a reality?
Yeah, I really do. I just think the emphasis has been so much recently on Braille for a lot of people, because it was sort of a race, it seems, to try and find new ways to create refreshable Braille displays, that it just kind of left the embosser printer world behind a tiny bit, to be honest. I think now that there's been a lot of progress in refreshable Braille technologies over the last year or so, that that's a market that needs to be addressed, and I think it'll come back stronger now. But I've definitely seen some very innovative methods and prototypes too, working prototypes that could be for $300. But we all kind of put it on the side, and now it's time to look at that again.
Right.
And just out of curiosity, I mean, I think last year we talked to a European company that was looking into, they were big into touchscreen haptics.
Yeah.
And sort of the notion of the idea that maybe someday we could get some sort of a Braille for touchscreens, almost like a simulation using a combination of touchscreens and haptics. Have you seen any of that? And what's kind of your take on that?
No, I'm very interested in it still. I worked with, believe it or not, Disney Research, and I worked together on that for about a year and a half. Disney was looking at it originally for exhibitry, with Disney World and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Where you could have a tactile experience with feeling a jellyfish or things like that,
Right.
And I met with them obviously from a different perspective than that. But there's also the similar kind of electrostatic haptic technology was being used with Senseg in Finland. They recently sold to China, so that company's been a little bit on a slower path to get back to figure out what's going on there. But I also just recently connected with a company in Australia that's doing a similar approach, and we're going to connect as well. I think from what I know, from what I've tested. Physically, myself tested, it definitely has potential. We've seen people test triangles in different geometric shapes, for test kind of environments successfully. You can definitely feel different hash marks and textures to identify bar charts and things like that as well. The Braille on the version we were testing at the time, because it was in a grid pattern, the way that it was giving feedback to your nerves and your fingers, if you pressed a dot one for A, it would repeat across the board, A, because it wasn't made to do that multi-touch kind of outputs. You know what I mean?
Right.
Wherever your fingers are is what you'd feel and read, but it wouldn't work the right way. I think it has the capacity and resolution to do Braille without a doubt. It's how you make it render that was not solved by the time now Disney actually said they no longer had interest in electrostatic haptics. And the person who I was working with has left, so that's kind of in limbo right now too. So I have a non-disclosure with Disney, so I'm actually chasing their attorneys now to talk about getting that going again.
Right.
So we'll see what happens. But I do think it has a lot of potential. I don't know what you can really discern for height, like how much you can really feel that isn't really there as a height.
Right.
I'd love to know that. If you were looking at an XY grid, you want to be able to distinguish the main access points differently from the line. You know what I mean? From not just thickness, but it'd be nice to feel a greater height there versus the line itself, perhaps, or something. So those are the things we need to test more of, and I'm still very interested in it. Yes, I think it has potential. And I guess I'll add one more thing. I know I'm talking a lot.
No. That's great. That makes our lives easier.
Yeah. But what I do think is really important was, let's say that we could find out that on a tablet or a smartphone, you could do this properly. Not just a simple graphic, but Braille. If you think of around the world with over 7 billion people in this world, more people have access to smartphones than they do toilets in this world.
That's right.
And if you could find a way to have that into a universal design, it would make a lot of developing countries have access to Braille in ways they never could before. I mean, I know of stories in countries where they have a Perkins Braille writer and it sits on a shelf because they can't afford the parts to fix it, but they have smartphones. This is the kind of stuff that I'd love to be able to solve that, even from that perspective. Even if you can't do everything in tactile graphics, it might be a helpful thing for reaching out to the world. So I'm still very interested in it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would agree. I mean, I think that will also be a real game changer if we can work that technology out. It's just a matter of, when, I suppose, and just how much work is getting placed into that. Technology is changing so fast. Part of the problem is it changes so fast that you start developing one technology and something else pops up that becomes the new darling, and everybody sort of shifts their weight over to that. So
no, that's true, and that's what I love about our Center for Braille Innovation. We feel we're on that cutting edge all the time, seeing on the horizon what's coming and knowing how we can adapt. Because when we talk to a research partner or someone doing a certain type of approach, we say our goal is simple: high quality, low cost tablet for the blind, graphics and Braille for the blind.
Right.
And it's whoever wins. But we do feel like we're working with the University of Michigan right now. As I said, we were working with Disney. We're working with others on that again. We're working with Innovision, as we just discussed with the Braille Me. Somewhere, somehow, we're going to find there's a best approach to render Braille for multi-lines of Braille or for graphics, but also this might be better for another part. And we will try and merge these entities together to create the ultimate product. And so that's what I love about the Center for Braille Innovation. We're always trying to think in that regard, because we're not owning all these IPs and properties. We're just kind of the broker. We're the information broker trying to make the deal for humanity. So that's what's fun about it.
Well, my last question here for you was going to be, what are you kind of excited about that you see developing? But I think we've already covered that. I think you've already answered that. Well,
you are correct in one thing, that technology is changing really fast, and I won't be satisfied personally until we definitely have a good solution for a tactile graphic, Braille and tactile graphic product. And I would love to see the universal design we talked about with Braille, or some kind of limited graphics on smartphones. So if that happens, we've made huge advances in countries that really need a lot of help. and for everyone to have a more affordable product. So I don't mean it just developing countries, but I'd love to see that Braille just, has opportunity to grow and flourish in everywhere in the world because of these changes in technology. That's what my ultimate goal will be.
Well, we're right there with you. We'll be waiting with bated breath as well, because, the sooner that every single visually impaired person can have easy access to Braille without having to purchase, a $6,000 add-on device, is what we need to shoot for as the ideal.
Yeah, well, we're working away, and periodically we update some of this on our Center for Braille Innovation section of our website. And if anyone does want to reach me directly, they can just email me at just president@nbp.org is the easiest way to remember it, probably. And I answer all my own emails, and we certainly can help. So answer any questions people have.
That's great. And also, why don't you also tell them about the website so they can go to that? So
the website is www.nbp for National Braille Press, nbp.org. That's it. It's very simple.
Great. And we'll include both those links in our show notes as well. Brian, I'd like to thank you so much for coming out and talking to us. And we're happy to have you on again, maybe when the Braille Me is released and you're distributing it, and we can have you on and we can maybe deep dive into the device and talk a little bit more about it.
I think that'd be fun. I think people are really curious, and as you said, since we're not in every city and every state and province, let's try and do a little bit of a summary of it for people that might not see it for a little bit. They can get a better handle on it.
Sounds good.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it, Rob and Ryan. Thank you.
No, thank you for your time.
Hey, Ryan.
Yes, sir.
Where can people find us?
It
hasn't been that long.
Wow. They can find us at www.atbanter.com.
They can also drop us a line if they so desire, atbanterpodcast@gmail.com, and find us on Facebook at atbanter and on Twitter at at_banter.
Exactly. They can also find Canadian Assistive Technologies at canasstech.com. That's CANASSTECH.com.
They can also find Mr. Rick Chant over at Chaos Technical Services. That's available to service any sort of problem that you might have with any of your assistive technology, be it, a low vision CCTV or, Braille display, Braille printer, whatever. He can fix it. He can be found at www.chaostechnicalservices.com. And that's it.
That's it.
That is it.
All right.
Thanks, everybody, so much for listening in this week. We will see everybody next week.
This podcast has been brought to you by Canadian Assistive Technology, providing low vision and blindness solutions across Canada. Find us online at www.canasstech.com. That's CANASSTECH.com. Or call us toll-free at 1-844-795-8324. For all your assistive technology servicing needs, call Chaos Technical Services at 778-847-6840 or find them online at chaostechnicalservices.com. Music provided by bensound.com.
Whoa, look at that. Master of the one take.